afternoon, Comic Book Day geeks, and welcome to issue 43 of the Script Heroes podcast.
The show where we bring you comic news, book reviews, and of course, industry blues. My name is Joseph Jasanowski, and I am the writer of Gender Hero, Cunning Carly, and the Cryptoverse.
And I'm Katie Markham, scripter of the Rusty Robot Country Club and ghostwriter extraordinaire.
Today in the polls, we've got quite a few for you guys. We're going to talk about Batman, The Long Halloween, The Last Halloween, number 1, Daredevil, Woman Without Fear, number 3, Ultimate Spider-Man, number 9, Wolverine Revenge, number 2, and Drawing Blood, number 6. Another jam-packed Marvel week, much to Katie's chagrin.
Here's the thing, it's all good Marvel though. So,
we have our one Marvel week a month now. We, for whatever reason, this week got loaded up with, all the Marvel books that we're reading. I don't think we're reading any other ones.
Here's the thing, I'm happy to get it all out of the way at once. No, they're very, very, very good books. But we have some extra special guests here in the Creator Corner this week. We are joined by the creative team behind Petrol Head, one of our favorite indie books here on the pod. That's Pye Parr and Rob Williams coming to chat all things Petrol Head. It's so great. I'm very excited to share the interview with y'all.
Yeah, time codes if you want to jump straight to the interview or anything else, of course. And if you enjoy this episode, any of our segments in it, you can follow the pod on Twitter, Instagram, TikTok, and YouTube. All at the handle Script Heroes Pod. Or you can find me personally on all the same socials at JJAZ1111.
And I'm on all socials at Katie Markham Pro.
And now, let's move on to the news. Okay, so we have a bit of news that has been quite the point of discussion for a bunch of people this week, at least in the comic book online social media corners that I've been in. So I don't know if you've seen this, Katie, but DC and Marvel have this week lost their joint trademark
superhero one
on the term superhero. And a lot of people are going I didn't even know they had this. I did know they have this.
I did not know.
You did not.
I was literally 3 hours ago, one of my friends at work told me. He's like, "Oh, did you hear it? How could you trademark superhero? That's such a generic term."
Well, the thing was, it wasn't when it was trademarked.
Yeah.
This was trademarked. I want to say in the '60s, I believe, is when this was trademarked. So it was really it was pretty much a DC and Marvel thing at that point. Yeah. Most of the companies had gone defunct. So it was really it was their thing. But the thing that I think is why a lot of people don't know about this, and the reason that they lost it in Marvel and DC, the reason they actually ended up losing is because Marvel and DC didn't fight it when they were
let it go.
We're not going to fight this. Is because the past 20 years, Marvel and DC have not protected this trademark at all.
Yeah.
They have not given a crap. So it's quite an interesting thing because the moment that they've lost it is when a bunch of people now are up in a tiffy that they had it, despite the fact that it wasn't really impacting anything.
And they weren't enforcing it, and they let it lapse. So
they clearly, once they understood that at this point they cannot have this anymore.
And again, the fact that there was no litigation around it for the past 20 years or whatever.
Yeah, it's been a long time.
Feels like proof that this is just, honestly, DC and Marvel being good guys in this situation.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's one of those things where people are finding examples of companies that are either were being extra safe about it or just were doing it for their own reason. People are pointing out how The Boys says the word soups, and a lot of things will say metahumans, and I'm I think that's more to do with them trying to stand out and have their own nice term for it than it is them,
DC and Marvel do the same thing.
Yeah, exactly.
They have mutants. They have I think it was the meta gene for the Young Justice shit. So that is not necessarily a fear thing, and even if it is a fear thing, which valid if so, if someone holds a copyright, you probably don't want to violate it. Do we have instances of Marvel and DC enforcing the copyright on people?
Not any time recently.
Exactly.
There have been plenty of books that have had... Because this is the other thing that people don't seem to understand. It's it's a trademark, which means you could still say superhero in your book. Yeah. A trademark just means it can't be the title. You couldn't put it on a t-shirt or something and sell it. There's plenty of t-shirts and shit that say the word superhero that
I have walked through the children's section in a Target. Every t-shirt has the word superhero on it.
And I'm certain that there have been comic books with superhero in their title.
Oh yeah.
So Yeah, this is I think people kind of misunderstand a little bit around the difference between trademark and copyright. They do
Mhm.
not have a copyright on the word superhero. You can have copyright on a word. Like there was no people can't use this word in their things. If the boys wanted to say superhero inside of the show, they could as much as they wanted.
Yeah.
It was a trademark which goes to titles. It's the same thing as the Captain Marvel situation, where
Mhm.
like DC can call Shazam Captain Marvel if they want, because Marvel can't own the word, but they couldn't title a book Captain Marvel, and
Right.
so DC went, not worth it. We're gonna
It's
change
Shazam
it to
time.
Shazam.
Except
And
for
now,
those absolute crazy bastards over at Young Justice.
I mean, that was before they made the change.
Yeah.
That's why I think they call him Shazam in the new 2 seasons, in season 3 and 4. They just
Maybe.
went like, we're gonna just switch up. But they do, I think, still call Mary Marvel, if I'm not mistaken, in Young Justice. So it's
I think
weird
so
stuff.
too.
I've always said I think Mary is like the biggest like loss of that. Like Captain Marvel to Shazam is lame, but Mary Marvel to Mary Shazam is such
It's
a
so
downgrade.
bad.
It's
It's
not
so
even
bad.
funny. Like Mary Marvel sounds so good. It works so well. It's that nice alliteration.
That little
I know.
Marmar
Fucking Mary Shazam.
doesn't work.
Worst superhero name ever.
Terrible. And like, I feel didn't they not call her that? Didn't they change her to also just be Shazam?
Did they at some? They might have at some point.
I
I
think she
remember
had a
going
solo book where she was just called Shazam. I could be wrong.
that track. It might have also been that the book was called Shazam, and then like she was. I don't know though. I did not read her solo outing, but yeah, I know for when they first went from the Marvel family to the Shazam family, they were all just whatever Shazam. I'm like, it's
So I
awful.
will say,
It's
in the change,
awful.
calling them the Shazamily, I do love. I kind of adore that.
The Shazamily is fine, but like they need better names than just their first name Shazam.
Yes. Honestly, I know this is very off topic, but I
Yeah.
feel like they are one of those instances where you can just call them all Shazam. Like,
I don't like them all. I don't like any of them being called Shazam. It's not a good name. It's the wizard's name. Why do they all have the wizard's name? Makes no sense.
because he gave them their powers. I think it makes perfect sense.
Already fixed
Because
the
they have the wisdom of Solomon, the strength of Hercules, the something of Achilles, the something of Zeus,
the power of Zeus.
the power of Zeus. Who's the other A? Ew.
Atlas. I think.
Atlas, right?
No, yeah, it's the strength of Atlas, right? Isn't it?
Oh yeah, then what is it of? Is it like the heroism of Hercules?
I think it is. Yeah. I think that's right.
Oh, who did I say the first A was? Achilles. Is it Achilles?
Yeah.
What is it of Achilles?
Well, my brain wants to say the speed of Achilles, which doesn't make sense.
No.
But, like that's where my head's
His whole
at.
thing is that his heel got shot. I don't think he's moving very quick.
I know.
Because the H is Hercules. It's not Hermes.
One of them is speed. And that's why, like, I don't know who
I thought the
Speed
H was
is.
Hercules, though, because it would make sense if it was, like, the speed of Hermes, but I could have sworn it was
I think
Hercules.
it is the speed of Hermes. I think that's right. Because
Okay.
it's all gods. And Hercules, like, I guess he becomes a god, but, like, he's not, like, classically
Demigod.
a god. Yeah,
And then who's the last M?
He's become a god.
Clearly we need to read Mark Waid's Shazam.
I read the first couple issues, which is now when he's called the Captain, which is at least a little bit better.
Oh,
Still
I
a little
hate
late.
that. I hate that.
It's better than Shazam. Like
I think Captain Shazam works.
No, because then he can't say his name. Which is so stupid.
Okay, I think it's dumb if every time he says it, he transforms. Like, he has to, like...
It wasn't dumb until it became his name. You know, like that was his magic word. And he said it. Yeah, they changed it at one point to, like, he needs to also, like, want it to transform him. But, like, that's
I
like,
think is fine.
Why? It's lame. I hate everything to do with making Shazam his name. It was the wizard's name. It was the magic word he used.
Okay, what would you have called
on the wizard's name? Anything else? Why would you just choose another
What would
character's
you have
name?
called him?
I probably wouldn't have changed it. I wouldn't have cared that the book couldn't be called his name.
DC has spoken to you, and they have said, Joseph, you are in charge of Captain Thunder?
Yeah, why not?
That's lame as hell.
Shazam's lame as hell. Katie, I want you
Shazam's like distinct.
Without the past of 14 years with him being called Shazam, I want you to go back with your mind and just think like, okay, this character you're told to rename him, you just choose to give him the name of one of the side characters. Is that not weird?
I think that if it was just the name of one of the side characters, yes, but the fact that it's the word that he uses to call upon his powers makes
But that's
sense.
weird to make it his name. It's so
Well,
weird.
do
You're
you
the
think it's
only person
weird?
who doesn't have a problem with this, by the way. You were like the first person
That's
I've ever seen to
fine.
not have a
I don't
problem with this.
care. I will be totally chill about name
I
changes.
love how this superhero trip has fully devolved just through us talking about the Captain Marvel situation again. Also, by the way, fucking DC's fault for letting the Captain Marvel fucking
Yes,
labs do that fight. But anyway,
that is very fair. Like, do I think it would have been better if he was still Captain Marvel? Yes. Do I have a problem with Shazam? No, I think it's fun.
Never, I think, done anything good with the fucking name. Like, they've just given it to 50 different people. Now, because there's a movie, people feel like, it's actually on this. No, it'll be on another new character in 10 years. They don't fucking, that name does not stick for anybody.
I feel like it's only been 3 people, hasn't it?
No, they had weird ones in there too that weren't in this chain. You know, like there's the chain that's had it, but they had a bunch of weird characters with it too in there. I want to say there was like a character who was a bit like kind of like arm fall off boy that they had that was called Captain Marvel, if I remember correctly, which is really funny.
I feel like it's just them showing off that they have it.
Yeah, well, that's the thing. Like, for the long time, they were like changing it every couple years in the very beginning and just slapping it on random characters so that they could keep the name. And then eventually they landed on like, okay, this like track is gonna have it, but they've still popped it on like 3 different characters in that. You know, there's the OG one, then there's Miss Marvel, the OG Miss Marvel who became Captain Marvel, which is Carol Danvers, and then there's the new Miss Marvel who became Captain Marvel, which is what's her name again? I can't.
Kamala Khan.
Kamala Khan, thank you.
Yeah.
So yeah. Anyway, we're gonna stop talking about Captain Marvel.
We're gonna stop
talking.
Okay, but wait, I have one more thought about Captain Marvel.
Okay.
Which is my gripe with naming conventions. I hate when naming conventions are just like, oh, in an alien language, this name sounds similar. So like Marvel, I hate that.
Yeah.
I hate that so much.
Sometimes I don't mind, like, I never minded the, like, I hate it sometimes, like, I think you're right, Marvel being Marvel is stupid, but, like, there's times where I'm okay, like, I've always liked the addition of Superman's thing, where it's like, the S-crest, like, it happens to look like an S, and in an alien language,
different.
It's, like, cool. Like, I always thought that's just really cool, like, that's, like, a cool, fun coincidence, that, like, okay, he was wearing this crest because it was, like, this alien thing from his home planet, and then, like, reporters saw it as an S and went, okay, well, we gotta give his name an S. Like, I think that's a cool
I like that.
connection.
But, like, if
really cool.
he picked it up and the tag on the inside said Sue Perriman, I'd be like, that fucking sucks.
I agree. I'm just saying, I think there's, like, a good side. Like, there's a good way to do it. And there's a bad way to do it. Superman is the good way to do it because you're, like, it's a coincidence that, like, works well enough and isn't incredibly stupid. Marvel to Marvel is just incredibly stupid.
He's very dumb. Yes. In any case.
Let's move on to a next bit of news, which is that Absolute Batman #1 has now earned its status as the second highest selling comic of the year, with already selling out at the distributor level with 250,000 copies.
Hell yeah, Mr. Snyder, you're welcome for my 1 issue contribution to that.
Yeah, me too. Got in there with one.
Yeah.
And it's going back to a second printing already. So,
did they release people who are doing variants? Because I feel like they must be like, second printing variants.
There's a second printing cover from Nick Trugada, who I believe is the main artist on the book. And then there's another one by Mike Diodato Jr., which is going to be a 1 in 25 incentive cover.
Cool.
And
I'm not a big variant person, but I enjoy seeing more cool art.
You know, there's things that people can, like, you know, trick me in, like the Void Rivals 10th printing cover I had to get because it just looked fancy. It's funny because in the you're in the comic creator, you know, Discord that we're in. Somebody had like posted
Shout out
Travis.
thing.
Yeah. It might have actually been Travis who had posted it. Might be wrong about that. Sorry if I am. And people were like talking about if it was the highest selling comic of the year, and me being my TMNT brained lad had to correct everybody that it's the second highest selling comic book of the year. Because TMNT #1 I know sold over 300,000 copies, which is, you know, more.
Even more, actually.
No, but I think this is a really good sign for the Absolute line. And like with how well the Ultimate stuff's been selling, like it seems like people like this like, you know, fresh
Oh
continuity
yeah,
stuff.
and I've
Which
been
is
seeing
cool.
so much. Maybe it's because I follow Hayden Sherman, but I've been seeing so much hype around Absolute Wonder Woman.
Yeah, there was
I have
another thing
seen
like I
nothing
was thinking
about
about doing for
Superman
news,
though.
but we decided not to do like spoilers. I think that's because Superman's like a little bit like a month behind, isn't it? If I
It
remember
is.
correctly.
It
So like
is.
that's
So
probably
maybe
why.
people just haven't got their
But
previews
like
yet.
there was another thing that was like 3 spoilers revealed for, you know, Absolute Wonder Woman, and I was like, I agreed with Katie that we're not going to do spoilers for the Absolute books, but I wanted to cover that.
Which is important because, spoiler, this weekend we have an episode where we're unveiling our fantasy football league for the Absolute
Yeah.
books.
I also like annoyingly realized that we're gonna have to record that in 2 chunks because we have to do the draft before we read the
Oh
Absolute
yeah,
bits.
we are.
So yeah,
We'll
we're gonna have to
figure it
record that
out.
in 2 chunks, but that'll be fun. Yeah, so we're gonna do a fantasy draft, and then because the All In special has like short
All of
stories, I
them.
believe, for each of the Absolute characters,
We'll get
we'll
our little
be
first taste of how scoring
yeah, we'll
works.
be using that for kind of showing you guys how the scoring is going to end up working. And yeah, we're going to be covering the main All In book.
Yes.
Because the main story is for the main universe.
Mm-hmm.
That'll be covered in a normal episode, but the Absolute stories will be in our Absolute video, which will start popping up once a month to cover kind of all the Absolute stuff going on in any given
That's right. So keep an eye out if you're looking to just get the monthly recap of what's going on in all of those titles as they start coming out. But do we have any more news to hit
We have
today?
one more new. We're going to delve into something we don't
Okay.
often talk about, which is film and TV. We're going to talk about an adaptation here because it stars a duo that is very close to our hearts. We've got to talk about, I think about an hour ago, James Gunn announced a movie called Dynamic Duo, which is not about Bruce Wayne and Dick Grayson, or about Dick Grayson and Damian Wayne, or about, you know,
Batman and Robin.
Batman and Robin. It's about Dick Grayson and Jason Todd. And I saw this and I immediately sent Katie a message like, oh my god, we're getting a Dick Grayson Jason Todd movie. And then I found, outside of James Gunn's post, another post with like some of the leaked information on this. And so this is going to be a movie about Dick and Jason as orphan thieves who call themselves the Dynamic Duo, produced by Matt Reeves and James Gunn, not set in Reeves' DC universe. And we'll use a cross between CG animation, stop motion, and live action real-time performance by a studio that seems to make mainly like puppet films.
That's what it seems to be.
So I'm confused.
So I am less confused, I think. I mean, I think the angle to take this at is DC often uses animation to give us Elseworld stuff. Like they did it with Gotham by Gaslight. They did it with the like Justice League Gods and Monsters. They've touched the Elseworlds with animation in a way that they probably never will with live action, just because it's so expensive to make a movie. Not that animation is not expensive, but you know. So I think
I'm just going to throw out that we're getting the second of 2 Joker Elseworld movies in live action.
Yeah, but those are, I think, less traditional Elseworld in that they are very much like made to be like cinema movies as opposed to be like, here's cool comic book things.
I have a feeling this is going to be kind of similar. Like, I get a very Joker-y vibe from this description of like taking 2 Batman-like characters, making them orphan thieves, giving it like a, you know.
I suppose. I guess I was seeing it as more
adjacent.
I believe that is a possibility. I am seeing it as a very Gotham by Gaslight adjacent because they are literally little orphans who are thieves in Gotham by Gaslight.
Very fair.
So I am not seeing it as more kind of serious cinema stuff. Gotham by Gaslight is a very serious film, and it's a really well done animated movie. But I'm seeing it less as, you know, gritty retelling and more as your faves in a new situation.
I think it's really interesting. It's definitely
not what I want is the big takeaway.
It's weird because like I guess we're gonna get more like because of like the synergy and stuff and everything's DC Studios now. It's just we've been seeing this like tweeted out by James Gunn, like gives it a level that like the Elseworld animation films that just get like released straight to DVD.
Yeah.
Also, this theatrical. Like that's
Is
a big.
it? I didn't see that.
James Gunn in his post wrote theatrical, so that's
Oh,
an important I think element as well. That like this
that
is
does
going
change
to the big
things.
screen. This is
Okay. I'm gonna
announced by
reassess
James
my.
Gunn. Like this is not like a with like a logo. And this is not like a under the radar little project that they're like spitting out on DVD as a little Elseworlds thing. Like this is going to theaters. This is odds are gonna be the Dick and Jason that we've got for the foreseeable future as Damien decides to take over our film universe.
I didn't realize it was theatrical. That.
Did I just like throw a little wrench in there for you?
Yeah.
Let me. I'm not on James Gunn's right now because James Gunn's didn't have as much information as the discussing film one. But let me find the James Gunn one really
So
quickly.
my immediate thought is with weird animation, beloved legacy hero. I wonder if they're trying to make this like DC's Spider-Verse.
The newest DC Studios Warner Brothers animation greenlit film for theaters. The story of Robin, or should I say Robins, as Dick Grayson and Jason Todd. So it seems like, I think weirdly they're probably going to adopt the Robin identity without Batman. Is my
That definitely
guess?
seems like the case.
Yeah.
And I don't think Robin is going to be like, oh, you know what I bet it is? I bet that they're going for like a true Robin Hood angle. Because in recent canon, it's because, and I guess in previous canon as well, but very much reaffirmed in recent canon, they've really honed in on Dick chose the name Robin because his mom called him Robin and he loves Robin Hood. So I bet that they're, with them being like two orphan thieves, I bet they're going full Robin Hood action here, we're not getting any Batman.
I would love if we like start there and we let this be like a long timeline movie, not like runtime, but like actual like in-universe time. And instead of like getting a traditional villain, we get them branching into Nightwing and Red Hood. As,
That's
like,
what I was literally about to say. I would be super
Jason goes
here
too
for
far, and Dick's kind of like airing on the one side, and we end up with that like Red Hood Nightwing face off. If that's the way they go with it, this could be really, really fun.
I'm still interested in the fact that they're doing it with puppets.
Yeah,
obviously, puppetry can look
like,
gorgeous. Like, it truly can. Look at like Tim Burton movies and stuff. Like, it can look really cool, really atmospheric. I'm a little worried.
Comic book thing though, like it doesn't. I mean, I guess like I don't know. There's certain. It depends on like the thing is looking at this studio, their kind of puppetry feels like it's very. It fits the like street rat thieves vibe, but I don't know that it fits the Robin, DC vibe.
Yes,
so
no, I fully agree.
Interesting angle. I don't know. I'm interested.
I'm thinking Robin Hood. I'm thinking they're going for Spider-Verse energy.
They want to do a Spider-Verse energy. They should have just let the Spider-Verse people make that Batman Beyond film that they wanted to make.
Right?
Not to
no, but I bet that it's going to be a thing that they like recruit. At least, maybe not in the first movie, but if they're going for like sequel bait and stuff, I bet they're going to be like, oh, and in these next ones, we're going to recruit all your favorite Robins.
We're just going to have all the Robins all at once because we can't have any patience.
No. Though it sounds like it won't be in the first movie.
No, it's gonna be our Dick and Jason, I was gonna say the most iconic Robins. Has Damien entered in that conversation?
I think Damien might have slipped past Jay. Just because
That's why I'm like I feel like that might be true. Like I said, everything pauses from like the era of when I was a child when I think of like things as iconic. And obviously when I was a child, Damian Wayne was like 1 year, in existence. So Jason was much more iconic at that point.
And I think that he'll always be iconic as the Robin who died, but I think Damien takes his place as people have seen movies with Damien and stuff.
The thing is, I think in general, I don't think the mainstream knows any Robin name. Like they know
right,
Robin.
Yes, correct.
But I don't know that the mainstream people really will know anything of Damien, whereas I think they will know of Robin dies / Red Hood and Nightwing. So I don't know. I think
I don't think they know Nightwing. As someone who
I don't know, when I was a kid, like a lot of people knew Nightwing. Despite like that was like the little like fun fact. It's like, did you know Robin becomes Nightwing? Like that was such the like little mainstream fun fact.
See, I was the little goon who was telling everyone that fun fact, and nobody knew it. And I wear
everybody knew
Nightwing regalia
I
every single day on my little work thing. And not every single day, but every time I talk about Robins, I always have to explain to people, I'm like, yes, there are multiple Robins. My favorite is Dick. He became Nightwing.
I think it's like Nightwing got a lot of like in the like early to mid 2000s, like there were a lot of like Nightwing like Easter eggs and shit and stuff like
like he showed up in that future episode of Teen Titans.
There was a Nightwing in the DCAU for the limited appearances he had there,
and he I always forget that the DCAU isn't the DC
the Camu. You always think of the Camu,
I do. But in any case. That's a lot of news for today.
That's a lot of news. But
we have strong feelings about anything that involves any of the Robins.
Yeah, because that's how it goes.
That's how it goes.
Anyway,
Robin boys
why don't we talk about the books that actually came out this week? So we have 5 books for you in the poll list reviews this week. Drawing Blood, number 6. Wolverine Revenge, number 2. I've got the red label version. I don't know if you did the same.
I do not.
Oh, okay.
But I do like that we have the same covers, but yours the red label version.
Yeah.
Like, that's fun.
Not as red label as the first issue was. Like, I honestly could not tell you where the red label shit came in on that one. Daredevil, Woman Without Fear, number 3. Ultimate
Dude, we are
Spider-Man,
going hard on our matching covers this week. Never mind.
No. I just get the cover A for, like, as much stuff as possible. You go all weird. Batman, The Long Halloween, The Last Halloween, number 1. But of
Gotta
course,
go with the beautiful Tim Sale cover.
Oh yeah. That's just not even a question.
Yeah.
What else did you get this week, Katie?
This week, I got Helen of Windhorn, number 5. Dick Tracy, number 5. Universal Monsters Frankenstein, number 2.
That's a Skybound, right? Skybound's doing the Universal Monster stuff.
Correct. Yeah. And Hell's Half Acre from Magma Comics, number 1.
Oh,
yeah.
Interesting. I don't think I saw that.
Yeah. What did you get, Jaybird? What did you see?
I also have a Skybound title here. I've got the Creep Show Anthology, Volume 3, issue 1.
Who's writing on that one? Because they have different people
on this one.
Oh, nice.
Yeah. So being a Chip Zdarsky fan, I had to go for that.
Okay, a side note about Chip Zdarsky. An incredibly pleasant man. I love him so much. He's very funny. It's so funny because I feel like I associated him so much with like kind of dark and creepy books for so long. Yeah. And he's the goofiest man on the planet. Like, he iconically Howard the Duck. He's written for Jughead. He's a goofball, and for some reason I've always been like, oh yeah, Chip Zdarsky, that edgelord. But he's not. He's incredibly goofy.
I've got Knights versus Samurai, number 1. I'm a Samurai fan.
Is that pretty self-explanatory, title-wise?
I think so. Yeah,
Nice.
This was one that I just saw on the shelf, and I was like,
the Dakota Brown method. Have the title tell the story.
Yeah, honestly, it's a smart way to go.
Oh yeah.
And then I have a Tim Seeley book. Actually, I've got The Turtles of Grayskull, the Masters of the Universe Teenage Ninja Turtles crossover.
They're having too much fun.
Just straight out of weirdly Hack Slash, straight out of that Hack Slash dream sequence. Turtles crossover.
The man manifested.
Still not as weird as the Naruto crossover that's coming.
No, I saw that was coming out, and I'm like, why do I kind of want to read it?
They cross over with everyone and anyone except for Daredevil because Marvel's obnoxious. Iconic. But Katie, do you have an order?
Yes.
That you want to delve into?
And by yes, I mean probably.
I assume the Marvel books are going to be grouped. That is your
of course.
style.
We love to group publishers. I think we start with Batman.
The Batman.
And then I think we go 2, 3, 9. So we do Wolverine, Daredevil, Spider-Man. And then cap it off with Drowning Blood.
Drowning.
Drow.
Let's drow the blood.
Let's drow the blood. We're going to be
But first,
dark elves about it.
Batman, the long last Halloween.
Batman, the long Halloween, the last Halloween,
Number
one.
Not
the prelude.
With Batman, the long Halloween, the last Halloween, issue 0, which came out last week, which reprinted Batman, the long Halloween special.
Yes. And not to be confused with Batman, the long Halloween number 1, which came out 20 years ago.
And did not have an issue 0 come out before.
No.
So, you know.
It's all very straightforward, and we have made it on purpose confusing. Let's go talk about Batman.
Let's do it.
Batman, the long Halloween, the last Halloween, number 1. Henceforth referred to as Batman, the last Halloween, number 1.
Nope, gotta say the whole thing the whole time.
Nope, fuck you. Gotham City learns to fear Halloween once more as a terrible event threatens to destroy Jim Gordon's life and puts Batman and Robin's teamwork to the test more than ever before. In a city of liars, masked vigilantes, and criminals, can anyone be trusted? This is coming to us from writer Jeff Loeb, of course, of Batman, The Long Halloween, Superman and Batman, and the Hulk. The artist on this issue is Eduardo Risso of Batman, Detective Comics, and 100 Bullets. The colorist is Dave Stewart, and the letterer is Richard Starkings. Jay, you were very hype after the prelude. I was hesitant.
Prelude was really good. I mean, there was some hesitation because it wasn't going to be Tim Sale, doing the...
That was the main source of hesitation, not the actual content of the prelude. But how are you feeling about actual issue 1?
I thought Eduardo Rizzo did a fantastic job of continuing the art here. The art is phenomenal.
And I can only imagine that's why they chose him for issue 1.
Yeah, look at that page. Mm-hmm. Just gorgeous.
So many stupendous splashes. Double page splashes.
There's a lot of great stuff here. I really like this issue overall. I think Jeff Loeb obviously knows how to write these characters. That wasn't going to change with the artist changing. It's a lot of setup, but it's very intriguing setup, and we still get that Catwoman interaction that gives us a little bit of kind of action in there. And also, I love the writing of Robin so much in this issue. This is how I picture Dick Grayson Robin, especially in a more serious situation. Mm-hmm. I know there's a lot of people who like the more Nightwinged Dick Grayson Robin, but I like a Robin who's kind of he's still very excited and adventure, but it's a lot with that something to prove, chip on his shoulder type character. That's where I like my Dick Grayson to be. I think this is the perfect blend of the pushing Dick Grayson into just being Jason Todd end of the spectrum, and the just turning him into modern Nightwing end of the Robin Dick Grayson spectrum. This is the perfect middle ground of he's still the fun and light to Batman's dark Robin, but he's got that something to prove,
he's still a
child
Gotham
who's
boy.
Been through trauma. Yeah. So I like this Robin a lot. I like this Batman a lot. That was covered. I covered that a lot when we talked about issue 0.
Yes.
There's a lot to like here. The Catwoman interaction was really freaking good.
Mm-hmm.
Everything with Two-Face, as limited as his role in this specific issue was really good. And the issue ender was just tremendous. So I thought this was a phenomenal issue. I was really here for it. I'm a little bit I want to see where we go, because we have mentions of Falcone and the crime families again, and I don't think they should be that involved, because the point of the long Halloween was the transition from the crime families to the more supervillain side of Gotham. So if this is the sequel, I think it should land on the we're past that. Now we're in the more supervillain vibe, but with the kind of Joku goons we get and stuff. I'm interested to see where it lands. This issue is not drawn too far to the one side yet, so I'm very excited. I thought this was a great first issue, and a lot of it had to do with Eduardo Rizzo bridging that art gap really well.
Yeah, I think that you hit on something really strong when we were talking about the prelude, where when Jeff Loeb is writing him, it just feels like Batman. This is Batman.
It doesn't feel like his interpretation. It's just
exactly. Batman. This is the platonic Batman, and I think that you hit on it with how well he does Robin as well. Where it feels like just the platonic Robin as well. These are the standards, and in a landscape where I feel like people are often trying to stray from the standards to like kind of put their mark on things or
Yeah.
abide to too many different interpretations. It's so good. It's kind of like how I feel about the Jason Aaron Batman as well, where it's like, yeah, that's fucking Batman, and it's Batman being cool as hell. But this even more to his core because he's not fucking
He's not in space.
in
Like
space.
that's like but in a new scenario where Jason Aaron can kind of like stretch it, whereas this is just in the element, how it is, nothing pulling you to any side, like just Batman, Batman's rogues, Batman's family, Batman's characters.
Exactly. And to your point about Robin, I also love a Robin who doesn't feel like Nightwing. Like, Nightwing, my favorite character. Dick Grayson, my favorite character. In many different forms. Like, Nightwing's my favorite form of him. But it's so true to who he is to have him be different as a kid than he is as an adult. And it's so good because with Robins like this, you really get, and I felt this way about the World's Finest Robin as well. You really
That's
get.
where I was actually talking a little bit where I thought he went a little too. Like that Robin is so bright and like excited. Like he feels a little
I'm sorry,
bit.
World's Finest Teen Titans Robin.
Oh, World's Finest Teen Titans Robin.
Yeah.
Yes, absolutely. World's Finest. I was thinking the OG World's Finest Robin.
Yeah, that Robin
right.
is very much a goober, and I love him dearly. But
you're right. No, World's Finest Teen Titans Robin is very similar to this Robin. You're absolutely right. That's a good pull.
Yeah, like I think that it's good when Dick has that like serious side of him because he does, because he's got this like leadership in him. He's got this serious side in him, and he can sometimes be relegated to a bit of a goof, which is fun in some situations, but you know, not necessarily he shouldn't always be a goof. But yeah, I think that this is a phenomenal Robin. The way that he interacts with Batman, and more importantly, the way that Batman is like psychoanalyzing him as they're going on their mission is so good. It gives you such good groundwork for where their relationship stands right now. My true only gripe with this issue, I was a little bit bummed that we didn't get any more of baby Barbara Gordon because we got her in the prelude. I was like, oh man, I was hoping she was going to be like a little bit more involved because I love Barbara Gordon. There she is. Also, there she is. She's everywhere. So that was like my one gripe with it. I was just like, oh, I wish we had a little bit more of that. I think that we're on a really wonderful track that feels so true to the Long Halloween. I continue to, in my little protective heart, be like, okay, this artist did a good job, but we get a new artist next issue. So I'm
my brain's like, after reading this one, like, Eduardo Rizzo couldn't have done the whole thing.
Right?
Like,
right?
It worked so well. Like, I thought we were doing a different artist every single issue because nobody was going to be able to capture the Tim Sale style. I think Rizzo did such a fantastic job capturing it. And I really kind of wish that we would. And maybe next week I'll be like, no, this is just another artist that killed it. Next month, I think I said next.
Fingers crossed for that scenario.
Yeah, but this was one where I was like, that would have been nice.
Yeah.
But in any case.
In any case, loved it. Super, super good.
It's fantastic.
Speaking of Batman artists, want to go talk about Wolverine?
We'll talk about Greg Capullo working with Jonathan Hickman on Wolverine Revenge. Wolverine Revenge number 2. Logan, out for vengeance. The unspeakable has come to pass, and now Sabretooth, Omega Red, and Deadpool will pay. Jonathan Hickman and Greg Capullo raise the stakes for Wolverine, and his near-death experience sends Logan toward untempered vengeance on his enemies. You won't want to miss this key chapter of the Prestige mini-series. The writer is, of course, Jonathan Hickman of Avengers, Fantastic Four, and X-Men. The penciler is Greg Capullo of Batman Spawn and Dark Knight's Metal. The inker is Tim Townsend. The colorist is FCO Placencia. And the letterer is Coy Petit. We had high praise for issue 1 of this series, Katie.
It was very fun.
Yeah, how'd you feel about issue 2?
I feel like we have a little too much world happening in an apocalypse. This is my big kind of out the gates thing. To backpedal a little bit to a less out the gates thing, Greg Capullo's art's just so fucking good. I love this man. I love the way that he draws people in cowls. The way that he draws people not in cowls is also great. The way that he draws Wolverine is such good Wolverine. In terms of the story, we have something of a time jump ish, like not a big time jump,
Yes.
but like in the end of the previous issue, Wolverine was like a puddle of goo because he was exploded. And I feel like the passage of time was a little bit weird for me.
He does reform at the end of the first issue.
I guess I remember him being more of a puddle of goo.
He was not a puddle of goo at the first issue. I mean, even in your version, because I remember we compared the two. You didn't have the final formation page, but you did have a reformation.
Okay, maybe it was just a subtler reforming that didn't stick with me as much.
Like, you didn't have the full one, but you did have... I
believe you. It's also been a month. Give me a break.
It's been a month. It's been a month. Yeah.
But the way that I stand by the weirdness of time in this to me. Like, we have... The apocalypse has happened, but there are, like, pockets of power. We know about the power that was happening in Russia?
Yes, I believe that's...
Yeah, wherever they were dropped in. And then we have a pocket in America, probably, because they're using Native American heroes, I think.
Yeah, I felt like weirdly, though, that America got, like... I think America got wiped out. Maybe the Native tribes were like, all that's left. Because I think that was, like, the thing in the first issue is if they didn't do... We can spoil the first issue.
Yeah.
If they, like, didn't succeed, that America was going to be wiped out, and then they failed, and now, like...
Well, no, I think in the first issue they were trying to steal the power source so that America wouldn't, like, fall societally.
Yeah, so I think America's, like, you know, kind of...
And so I think we're on the outskirts of it with, you know, this going on. And I think my main gripe is that we have so much civilization happening. Like, in this apocalyptic book, I expected more of, like, a kind of wandering Wolverine, you know, kind of in this apocalyptic scenario, but it doesn't really feel like he's at the, you know, end of the world. Like, the only things that really hint at it to me are his, you know, vengeance quest. Like, it doesn't feel like a world where all of this shit has happened. We do get some very cool visuals is another huge boon for this book.
Kind of a must with Greg Capullo, right?
Exactly. You know? I feel it's before the halfway point. I'll say it. Wolverine wearing, it's a little bit after the halfway point. But Wolverine wearing Magneto's helmet when he attacks someone, badass as hell. That's cool. Love that.
Very.
The, like, reveal of him doing it, so good. But then we just get a little too much, like, lab time for what I thought was going to be a very, like, action-y Wolverine book. And it has a couple of good fights, but...
I don't know if it has a couple of good fights. It really
It's got one good fight.
Yeah. I was just like, I think you're stretching. I think that's kind of my gripe, is with, like, the action balance. Like, I think the opening is extremely strong. I love the interaction between Wolverine and Nick Fury. It feels like, especially in a miniseries, like an alternate world miniseries like this, usually hero deaths are not given as much weight as they should be. I think Hickman does a great job here of giving Cap and Bucky's deaths a lot of weight. And then, like, where Fury is after that is so great. Yeah. And I really like that. So I thought the opening was phenomenal.
Hickman's dialogue, wonderful.
Yeah. I thought the whole opening was phenomenal. And then after that, the, like, large middle of the book, not like the basically everything except the very beginning and the very end was a lot of meandering. The first fight is not a fight at all, which is kind of lame.
Yeah.
We get nothing. It just kind of happens and it takes up a lot of space, is like we're kind of wandering. And then we get something very action-packed at the end, which was really exciting and really well done and gives a really good lead into the next issue. Thought that was phenomenal. Thought the opening was phenomenal. I even like the stuff with Magneto is, like, conceptually, but it's just a lot of, like you said, kind of meandering with dialogue. So yeah, no, this issue just felt very kind of stuck. Like they knew that for the pacing they needed to start this issue in X place and end this issue in X place, but then I don't know. Even then, though, they could have given the like first encounter a lot more time instead of like giving that no time and then just giving a lot of time to the stuff around it. It felt like a very weirdly paced issue. Is kind of what I'm getting at.
Agreed.
And
it
to
reminded
me,
me
it did
a
not
bit.
live up to the first issue.
Agreed, 100%. It reminded me a bit of towards the end of the second arc of Green Arrow, where it's just like, oh man, we've got our like important things to hit, and I feel like we're hitting them in a weird way. Where like maybe if you're reading it all the way through,
it feels like the
feels
penultimate issue of that arc too. Was that issue 11, right? I think it feels a lot like issue 11 of that arc, for sure. Where it's like, okay, well, you want to start here and end here, but there were things you could have done in there. Why did you like shorten the thing that should have been long and then lengthen the things that should have been short? Like, it's just a little weird, especially from Hickman, who's usually so phenomenal at pacing. I guess there's that one issue of Ultimate Spider-Man that felt very weird pacing wise too. So like, I guess occasionally you get one like that, but
it happens. To touch on one last thing, Jay got the red band version, and I did not.
That's what we've been doing. I've been reading the red bands, and you've been reading the normal versions.
And apparently the red band quite disappointing on this one.
We did the same thing. We compared it. We went, no, damn, that was cool. Like, you missed out without the red band because there was that cool formation thing, and like that was really great. Like that was a great splash that you missed out on. This one we looked and we're like, okay, the pages they cut from Katie's version could have totally been in Katie's version, so they're kind of just cutting content they didn't have to cut. And there's nothing super gruesome or art in this issue.
There's like Wolverine carrying someone's head, which is, gross.
No, but it was drawn in such a clean way that you definitely could see this in a Marvel book without exactly. Like you could see this in a Marvel book. It was drawn very clean. There's no blood, there's no anything.
At one point there's like a motorcycle in someone's face, and like that's again could be a very gruesome idea, but is drawn in a way that isn't super red band deserving. Yeah, the red band,
we got the moments how they would normally be when they were forced to be in a normal Marvel book, and yet they were still cut from the normal Marvel book. It was a very odd red band version, I feel like, is where we landed on it. But
I believe that is true. But speaking of red bands, as in someone wearing a red bandana kind of scarf around her neck, it's time to talk about Daredevil, the Woman Without Fear. Daredevil, Woman Without Fear, number 3. In the wake of the gang war, Elektra Natchios, is that how you say her name? Nachos. Okay, thank you.
Nachos.
Resident Elektra fan.
I think like a lot of people pronounce it with like a little bit of an accent, but it's essentially nachos.
Okay. Elektra Natchios has, I threw the EOS in there again, has found herself a pawn in a criminal game. But where the mafiosos manipulating her are rank amateurs, Elektra is the most dangerous and lethal assassin the Marvel Universe has ever known. And while she may have turned over a new and non-lethal leaf in recent years, these mobsters and brutal new Punisher proved to be her greatest challenge yet. The writer here is Erica Schultz of Daredevil Gang War, Rhapsody, and X-23. Ooh, I really want to read her X-23. I didn't know she did that. That's going on my little list. Jay does the credits if you can't tell. The artists are Michael Dowling of Judge Dredd, Thor, and Amazing Spider-Man, and Ivan Fiorelli of Fantastic Four, Venom, and The Amazing Spider-Man. The colorist is Deke Nephi, and the letterer is Clayton Cowles. Jay, as mentioned, you are big Elektra boy.
I like Elektra a lot, and I think that Erica Schultz writes Elektra so wonderfully,
right?
Because she does not attempt to she doesn't attempt to make Elektra clean. Like she leans into how like kind of fucked up Elektra's mentality is. Like, I don't want to spoil kind of where she lands at the end of this issue, but it's very much a thing where like she's standing by her morality in name only. Like she's getting to like wash her hands of this thing, but she's very much still not doing something okay. And that's just very much how she writes Elektra's Daredevil, where it's like she's trying so hard, but like she's still kind of a little fucked up.
Yeah.
Which also is just kind of a Daredevil thing in general. Like even Matt's Daredevil is not the most mentally healthy individual. Like Daredevil's I guess to like call yourself the devil when you like go around fighting crime, there's a little bit of, fucked up in there. And we talked about in the last issue, which is very well this issue, just like how Erica Schultz and Michael Dowling and now Ivan Fiorelli is also involved, do just fantastic like fight sequences. And that's kind of continued in this issue, where there's just really interesting and easily followable action. This is mainly an action issue with some kind of flash asides going on and some interesting stuff. So, yeah, this was another great issue. I think that Elektra's story is progressing quite well. I like where Elektra's at mentally right now. I think it's beautifully fucked up.
Oh yeah. I think that this is such a book that this is just such a book. This is such a good book.
It really is. Look at it. It's like
it's got pages and everything. It's such a good example of a book that is like I'm going to say a subtle character study, in that the purpose of it never makes the book so character study-y that it doesn't have action, because it's tough to call it a character study book when basically the past 2 issues have been almost constant fight scenes. But because of the way that Erica Schultz captions, and because of the way that she's telling the story, it's such a good character study of Elektra while also being insanely exciting. And I think that it's a really amazing feat for this team to make something that you could be very distracted by the fight, or you could be very distracted by the character interiority, but it seems together perfectly. And I think a lot of that is because a lot of the language, or I guess a lot of the way that Elektra expresses herself is through violence and through the way that she's tackling these situations. It's such a phenomenal book to be reading as someone who has never touched Elektra before. I've read her Death.
Yeah, we put on the list Zdarsky's Daredevil as well, because I want you to be introed to this.
We will,
the start of this version of Elektra. Essentially Daredevil Elektra.
Yes. It's just so good for giving. There's not a moment where I feel like I am missing context on Elektra, which is insane because I know nothing about Elektra.
Yeah, and it's such a I think it's such a testament to Erica Schultz's version of this character that we picked up in the middle of an event for an event side book. And because of her style and doing this internality while there's just awesome action going on, that's mainly what Gang War was. This gets a little bit more story because there's actually a full arc going on. That was able to make us buy in. And now we're on this miniseries, and we're gonna get the next miniseries because for whatever reason they won't just give Erica Schultz an ongoing.
Give Erica Schultz an ongoing.
But Marvel loves their miniseries.
Yeah,
they are. They're terrified of anything going for more than 5 issues. Just straight fear in their veins.
Just go the DC route. Say it's 5 issues, then say it's 10 issues, then say, okay, fine, it's an ongoing.
Yeah, they don't do that, though. They want that number 1 revenue.
I
want
know,
that number 1 revenue.
The cowards. But if anyone can handle a number 1, it's Erica Schultz. Because it just feels... I don't feel lost with this character who has so much history. And I love that so much. And it's really wonderful to feel like I'm falling in love with this character. And to know that you, someone who really likes Elektra, from a historical point of view, also loves this interpretation.
Yeah, well, it's such a interesting thing because because we only read the first issue. We only read the first issue, and I only read the first couple issues of the current main Daredevil book. But it's just such a difference in the main Daredevil book felt and whether you're a fan of this style of a new creative team or not, it felt very much like we're going to kind of reset so we can do what we want to do with this character. Whereas Erica Schultz has done such a good job of saying no, this is where Zdarsky left the character, and I'm going to pick up the character from there and move her forward. And personally, I love that so much more for when a new creative team jumps onto something. There's people who don't have a problem with the reset button. I've never loved it. But yeah, it's such a credit that without pressing that reset button, Erica Schultz can still get you, a brand new reader, involved. And I think that's a testament to the fact that you don't have to press the reset button.
Exactly. And I think that it's a real good show of finesse, because I'm not a fan of the reset button, but I do love a contained vibe. And you don't have to start with Matt becoming Daredevil again to have that, inviting start of the story. I don't know I haven't read Zdarsky's Daredevil with Matt or Elektra, and these feel like good contained stories from that rather than a part of that contained story, if that makes sense.
That's what I think is so good. It shows the fact that you can do both. You can be friendly to new readers while still respecting what came before and continuing a lot. Like, I think the best comics are comics that are both approachable if you are jumping on, but also even more rewarding if you read what came before. And this feels like it's exactly that. And that's why I love it so much.
And that's also why books should go back to putting the story arc on the front.
They should.
Like Batman Prodigal #6.
Anyway, we've got one more Marvel book. Ultimate Spider-Man #9. The Sinister Six makes their first strike. But who are the Sinister Six? The first member throws down with Spider-Man and Green Goblin in this action-packed issue. Plus, with Tony Stark's return, Peter must also explore the limitations of his new suit. The writer is once more Jonathan Hickman of Avengers, Fantastic Four, and X-Men. And the artist is the artist on Daredevil Gang War that we had mentioned in our previous review, Marco Cicchetto of Daredevil and Star Wars. The colorist is Matt Wilson, and the letter is Corey Petit. Kate.
Yes.
We were quite hype on the last issue, quite hype on some of the suit stuff in the last issue. How do you feel about this issue?
I liked it. It's good. Ultimate Spider-Man is just objectively very good. I feel like this issue wasn't my favorite thus far. Like, it by no means was like a huge quality drop. I just feel like maybe there, not to get on Hickman's pacing twice in 1 week, but I feel like it was a little bit odd. The movement specifically of the first scene with MJ, Jonah, and MJ, JJJ, and Uncle B. He doesn't fit the naming scheme. Was a little rapid for me. Like, it felt like it was very slow and then incredibly fast to end, which threw me off a little bit, which is tough at the start of a book when it's like, oh, I feel a little offbeat already. But then I really liked the scene where they were talking about the suits. I think that it is very telling for our previous theory that Peter's suit speaks in black text bubbles. I don't know, just maybe reading into things a bit.
A wee bit.
And I didn't mind him interacting with himself here because it didn't feel like over the top. Yeah. I liked that quite a bit. And the it said it in the description. The fight we get with Black Cat, I really enjoyed. I thought that was neat. I think Marco Cicchetto is a phenomenal artist. He might be, I know this is a bit of a cop-out, but he's definitely my favorite Marvel artist right now.
Another reason to read that Zdarsky Daredevil run. All I'm saying.
He did that too?
Yeah! Yeah!
Okay. Erica Schultz's X-23, Marco Cicchetto's Daredevil. Yes, Zdarsky's Daredevil, but, you know. Yeah. Marco Cicchetto is...
I believe he does the whole thing, but he does a large...
How dare you? I'll only read the ones Marco Cicchetto did. Okay. That's not true. Because I'm sure Zdarsky will draw me in. Yeah, I think that the back half of this was a lot stronger than the front half. And that maybe is even a little unfair because it was like the first scene really threw me for a loop. But then that had me be like, oh, well, this scene's okay.
I think it definitely stretches a bit, but I still like the update on the paper because I don't think we got them in the last issue.
I don't think we got much of them. We had, that the one where they were at the birthday party? Or was that the issue before? At the birthday party. And Jonah gives Peter's son a copy of his book.
Yeah, so we get them more in like a kind of like fun
professional environment
role in the last one. Yeah, but I quite like this issue. I think you're right that it's like the pacing's a little bit weird because they don't like directly follow up on a lot of where they were at last issue. Like it's a little bit of a weird jump. That being said, I think this is one of the best issues in terms of the Harry and Peter dynamic. Like their differences are highlighted so ridiculously well. Like we have their first interaction
towards the end
with the suit, and then with that fight, do not want to spoil, but it is phenomenal what they do with the two of them. It works so well. It's such a good highlighting. I think I said at the end of the first arc when we got that Harry Solo issue that it really felt like moving forward it was going to be kind of, you know, a Spider-Man book in name only and really like a duo book.
Yeah.
And that seems to be the case so far through this arc. Like it really is the duo of the two of them. Like we get Peter's home life more, but like when we're out, it's really the two of them.
Yeah.
And I really like that so much. I think we get such a good look at Harry in this book, and so far, Ultimate Harry's just been one of my favorite characters. I really, really like
So
Ultimate
good.
Harry. I think he's phenomenally written. I think that there's so many interesting avenues to go with him, whether it is him eventually turning evil or it's him staying, in this anti-hero role, whether it's a breakup, whether it's a like, there's just so many interesting avenues opened up, which speaks to how well he's been written and his dynamic with Peter has been written. So, yeah, I think because of that, I really like this issue because I'm such a fan of this version of Harry. And like you said, the Black Cat fight just all the way through is phenomenal.
Oh yeah.
So, and like what they do with the
freaking
stuff is really great too. Like Peter's in spandex, Gon is his weird suit, but not gone from his life. This is now like a Homeland security system, which is interesting. Like, there's a lot of cool little things done in this for the world and for moving forward that I think is really well done. So yeah, I enjoyed this issue quite a bit.
It was again, it's hard for there to be a bad issue of this book. It just wasn't my favorite one thus far. Rad. Are we ready to move along to Drawing Blood? Drawing Blood number 6. Shane Bookman's Hollywood adventure continues. Books visits the film set of Morgan Harbour's gritty reboot of his Ronin Ragdolls comic, and once again, past collides with present, and reality crashes into fantasy. Books' messy life just keeps getting messier, but that'll happen in LA, won't it? Asking you, my beloved sister who watches our podcast sometimes and lives in LA, won't it? The writers here are Kevin Eastman of TMNT and David Avallone of Betty Page and Elvira. The artists are Kevin Eastman of TMNT, Ben Bishop of Last Ronin and The Far Side of the Moon, and Troy Little of Rick and Morty and Cult of the Lamb. The colorist is Luis Delgado, and the letterer is Taylor Esposito. Jay.
Yes.
We're firmly in Jay is not in Kansas anymore territory.
Yeah, we're firmly in the second arc here. We're in issue 6, the second issue of the new arc. And I still continue to love this series. I do have to ask the question. What did Michael Bay do to Kevin Eastman?
Right, the amount
because
of
Kevin
this man
Eastman is the nicest lad. I have not heard him badmouth a single interpretation of the Turtles, except for like slight asides to the Michael Bay movies. Like, this man won't even say a bad word about the shitty TV show that came out with fucking the 5 Turtles and shit in, I think that was the 90s is when that came out. Anyway, like, won't even say a bad word about that. Anyway, like, what did Michael Bay do to this man that this character gets like a whole fucking, and maybe it's not that, maybe Kevin Eastman just thinks it's fun to like do, like, maybe I don't want to put hate
honestly,
in Kevin
that's
Eastman's
the
heart
vibe that I get from it.
But it's so funny to me that he goes in on Morgan Harbour so hard. It's so funny to me. It's such a funny like parody of those films in all the best ways. And going beyond that, because this issue does so much beyond that, I just had to start there because it's very funny to me. This is another phenomenal Book's character issue. Like, his character is getting so much now, and I love that so much because it just lets you buy into him so much more and root for him so much more as we kind of continue to go through his journey. And also, it's just such a good, like, industry book. Like, it's such a good, both from, like, a comic book industry and a movie industry and even, like, a play. Like, there's just such a cool, like, industry vibe to this that, like, feels like you get to be involved with, like, this behind-the-scenes stuff. And I love that so much. I mean, the book is literally, the subtitle is literally the story behind the stories. And that's, like, so true to what this book is about. Yeah, I love it. This is great. Also, we now have Luis Delgado coloring, starting with this issue, which is phenomenal. He's the Last Ronin colorist. So fucking good. We're just putting the whole Last Ronin team on this now with Ben Bishop, Kevin Eastman, and Delgado. Let's get Tom Waltz and the Escorza brothers on an issue somehow. I don't know how, but let's do it.
Clearly in the issue where Books considers writing the Ragdolls version of Last Ronin. There you go.
You're right. Honestly, that should be the next, like, because the first volume had the, like, parody of the first issue comic where we got the Ragdolls comic, and then the second volume hasn't come out yet because, the second volume Kickstarter hasn't come out yet. We got the, like, the single issue that was, like, based on what the cartoon would be, you know? So now for the third volume, we should get the single issue that's based on their version of Last Ronin.
Hell yeah.
So
that would be super rad.
I think that's the correct way. I think you're correct here, Katie. That's how this
Thank
should
you.
go.
I'm always correct about Turtles things. Obviously.
Obviously.
that being said, I'm going to lightly disagree with you. It's still a very, very good issue. I feel like we got a little bit of like classic Volume 1 books in this one. Like, he ends up doing
he
something a
slips
little
back down
shady.
he slips back down his
Yeah.
little. I like that though. I like that little moment of weakness. I thought it was a
Yeah,
good.
which
Because right
it's
before
fine.
we get the phone call that like shows where he's like currently at, and then like it happening right after felt like a very like backsliding moment that he's
exactly.
Gonna have that
And like
I like
he
that a lot.
he wasn't the one to like initiate things or anything.
Yeah. He's just a weak-willed man.
Yeah.
That's like his whole characterization. He's a very weak-willed individual.
He really is. What Kevin Eastman is saying about himself, who knows? Says, I am a weak-willed man.
We started it, what is he saying about Michael Bay? And now it's what is he saying about himself?
Exactly. You can't have it both ways, or rather, only one way.
He'll poke fun at himself, you know, like that's why he doesn't mind on himself.
But I feel like I was a little bummed because in the previous issue, it was such like a high point for books, and I'm like, yes, I'm here for books, feeling like he's got his agency again. And I feel like he lost a little bit of agency in this book. Like, he wasn't really in the driver's seat with a lot of stuff.
That's fair. It felt very much like an issue, like, to me, it makes sense for the second issue of the arc. Like, we had the first arc, and then we had, like, this is where he's at after the first arc. This felt a little bit like kicking him back down so that, like, you know, he can have to rise again in this arc, which I think is kind of fun. But, you know, I get the
that's, like, my little gripe. My main curiosity is what the fuck is happening with Courtney? Like, we get this fucking, this shot of her when he's on the phone with her, when she's like dramatically monologuing and looks like she's doing some vigilante shit. And I'm like, girl, what are you up to? In your little Batman pose, hanging off of a roof. Like, girl, what? And I'm very confused by that.
I think the vibe there was, I don't think that's real. That's
what I thought, like, but is the conversation not real then?
No, it's real. Because, like, if you see... Like, when you actually see her on the phone, and, like, before that, she's in the studio. That specific moment
Isn't that someone else?
Is it?
Yeah. That's Alexa, who's the person, like, running the...
That's fair. No, I think the conversation... I just think, like, the vibe of that was because it's, like, on the other side of the... And she's talking about how he's created an image of her. Like, they were exemplifying that.
But then the conversation, I thought that after that, we were going to get some sort of reveal that books didn't actually call her. But then we did. And I'm like, okay. Because the conversation that she is doling out is so, like, tonally dramatic and different in my vibe. Like, I don't think that she's actually doing this. I agree with, like, the fuzzy edges and stuff. We're getting the like, image of her.
I think she's kind of like, she's kicking him down, and she's like, dude, I'm not the solution to all your problems. This is like what you've made me out to be in your head, and so we're getting like what he's like picturing as like a nice little example of like, he's putting her up on this pedestal, you know?
Yeah, I thought that her interaction was a little weird to me. Like, you're right, we've got the fuzzy dreamscape stuff going on. But then it was weird to me that the conversation was real, because the conversation felt very like, I thought that it was his, like, imagination turning on him, essentially.
I get that. I think it was more just, like, he kind of has dumped too much on this woman he just met, and she was kind of, like, giving him a little bit of a reality check. Mm-hmm. And I think that, like, the reason is that comes right before that backslide we were talking about.
Yes,
and I think that's, like, the juxtaposition where, like, he goes from, like, he gets kicked down. I think it makes a lot of sense. Like, he gets kicked down from this woman that he put all of his, like, shit on, and then he gets this, like, woman throwing herself at him, like, in his own stuff, like, reminding him, essentially, like, of his glory days. And he's very much of like, this is the easy answer, and he decides to take it to, like, you know, give himself that slight moment of reprieve, and then right after he's like, oh shit, I just fucked it up even more. Like, I just, you know.
Yeah, I didn't love the phone call, the way that it was
that's fair.
Delivered.
I thought it worked. But
which is fair.
That's fair.
Yeah, that was like my one gripe with the issue. And then books being a little bit more Volume 1 books. But still very, very good. But that is the last of the issues to discuss this week.
Yes.
Which means it's time to select.
I've been putting books, so I forgot that we're back to our system of where I need a book for, you know,
that's right.
Rex, so we're gonna...
I know what mine is. Do you know what yours is?
I don't. So do you wanna start here? I think I'm leaning one way, but there's there's a few candidates.
I will say it was very much a 2-candidate race, and the fact that it was a 2-candidate race is incredibly impressive to the second book. I am going with Batman: The Long Halloween, The Last
Even
Halloween.
if you didn't give the issue
#1.
0 one, wild.
Yeah, it's because the issue 0 one I was plagued by anxiety and also absolutely went feral for The Moon is Following Us.
That's fair.
Yeah, I thought about giving it to Elektra, which was very impressive to me to come off of one of my favorite Batman stories, getting, because issue 0, it's an issue 0, it's a prelude, yeah, that's a valid reason, right? But yeah, I'm giving my pull list rec to The Long Halloween, Last Halloween. What are you picking?
I'm gonna agree with you. With what was right there for me to also hold up was also Daredevil. I did also have Drawing Blood in my periphery for this because I did love this issue, but I do think it has to be The Long Halloween, Last Halloween, especially when things are tight. Give it to that issue 1 because easier to pull and get on. I think this is easier to get on, and I also just think this is so, like we said, like this is just the baseline. Like so I don't think there's like, if you like this style of this, or if you like this, like this is just, if you were ever going to read a Batman book, like this is a solid option to pick up and pull. Like,
granted, read The Long Halloween first, but
you might be. You might be a little confused.
They give context.
They give context, but you might be like, "Why does this matter this much?" So, read The Long Halloween.
And like with something that's a little bit of its own continuity, it's nice to have.
I'm pretty sure this is canon, maybe.
Yeah, but like it's got its own like story that's been told.
Now that I'm thinking, aren't these canon actually to? Weirdly, I think these are canon to Frank Miller's world, aren't they? Like, I think they're canon to year 1.
Here's the thing. Jay and I were talking about this off pod, and then we brought it up again with Daredevil.
I think they're technically canon to Frank Miller's Batman universe.
There is not a single part of me that gives a rat's ass about canon.
I am pretty sure, because wasn't Long Halloween like a sequel to Year 1, if I'm not mistaken?
Maybe.
And Year 1 is in continuity with Dark Knight. So I think these are weirdly though, because I do think they're mentioned in main canon at points, because main canon mentions everything at some point, because the writer wants to, mention their favorite thing. But I think technically they might be in Miller canon. Anyway.
In any case, read The Long Halloween and The Long Halloween, The Last Halloween #1, so that you can get the experience that neither of us got, which was reading The Long Halloween as it came out. I'm assuming you didn't.
No, but how are they getting that experience?
Because they're going to read The Last Halloween as it's coming out.
Oh, well, we can get that experience too. The way you made it sound like somehow they're going to get the experience of reading The Long Halloween as it comes out, and I'm like, I don't know how they're doing that now, Katie.
No.
Like, that's a little...
It's fine. We're time traveling. It's all good.
No, I read it bundled up,
But speaking of time travel, are you ready to, you, the listener, experience us time travel as we jump forward like 2 minutes to where we go to the interview? Or no, we travel backwards to the interview.
Yeah, I was going to say, like, you were doing a whole time travel thing and then you didn't go to it. Like, we're going to time travel to 2 days ago when we conducted this interview.
Here's the thing. I'm always hitting the second best way to, or like the good lead into a transition, and then fully
and then
fumbling.
missing the back end of it.
Exactly.
Yeah, so time travel with us 2 days ago to an awesome interview.
All right, here we are in the Creator Corner. We're joined today by Rob Williams and Pye Parr, the creative team behind Petrol Head. Those of you who have been listening to the podcast for a while know what a big fan of Petrol Head Jay and I are. So this is a very, very exciting interview for us to be conducting today. Thanks so much for coming on, guys.
Yeah, no problem at all. Thank you for asking us.
Thanks for having us and for wearing the Petrol Head merch, which we much appreciate.
So to start us off here, would you guys mind giving us a just kind of quick pitch on Petrol Head for perhaps people who didn't hear our 5 glowing reviews?
I wrote down, I've been trying to perfect this sort of pitch for Petrol Head, and eventually after doing it after the horses bolted, after 5 issues had come out, I think I finally got it. So Petrol Head is the fun, very high-speed, extremely colourful sci-fi story of an outdated, grumpy old drag racing robot in a dystopian city who goes on the run with a bright young girl called Lupa, who might just have the cure for the climate emergency that has destroyed the planet.
I mean, what a beautiful pitch, because it is all that high action, high color, and the relationship between Petrol Head and Lupa. We might be getting ahead of ourselves. It's hard for me to
Katie just wants to gush about how much we love Petrol Head for the entire interview.
But it took me 2.5 years to finally get the pitch right, basically. So yeah,
it's a great pitch, though. And I mean the OG, like the original synopsis, because I'll go into why Petrol Head is so important to the podcast here quickly to kind of give people a little bit of background on our connection to the book from a fan perspective. When we were recording the very first episode of this podcast, before the only episode that does not have video, because we were trying to just do a straight up podcast at that point. Whatever the book was that we were supposed to be reviewing that week that we decided on did not come out for whatever reason. It got delayed. So I'm in my comic book store, like, looking for something. I don't think Kate even knows at this point that the book's been delayed. I see, this very cool cover on the shelf, and I'm like, huh, that looks interesting. And I pull up League of Comic Geeks, I click on the book, I read the blurb that was there, that version of the pitch, thought it was phenomenal, and went, Katie, let's do this. And that was the first ever review of our podcast, is the first issue of Petrol Head. I think we went like 30 minutes talking about that book and how much we loved it. So there's our little
I'm sort of most happy to know that the system works. Like, people go into a shop and see a cover and buy it. I mean, it sort of seems like quite a hard thing to achieve sometimes. So to know it's happened at least once is very gratifying.
Yes, absolutely. But you mentioned 2.5 years to get that pitch down, but you've been working in comics for much longer than that. Would the two of you mind giving us a little insight into how you got your start working in the comic book industry?
I started as a graphic designer when I was 22, working for 2000 AD, to putting all their production work, scanning, designing all the stuff that doing all the stuff that isn't actually the making of the comic parts of it. And I did that for a long time, and then gradually moved over to drawing things until I got a chance to do a book that meant that I could quit work and do it full time, and I've ended up here. But Petrol Head is my first thing outside of 2000 AD, really. Certainly my first creator-owned book.
You did, and I'm very proud. Realm of the Damned, didn't you? As well?
Yeah, but I don't own that. That's
okay.
Yeah. Yes, I did do Realm of the Damned. Yeah.
And I was long story short, I was a journalist, and I was always a comic fan. And I wrote one comic script just because I thought it'd be a fun thing to do, and I thought maybe I can get a friend to draw it or something. But that was a comic called Class War, and that got published, and then that led to me getting offers of work from places like 2000 AD and Marvel and DC, and gradually over time my comic work kind of took over from my journalism work, and I've been doing it now for worryingly over 20 years, which is quite scary.
I didn't know Class War was your first thing.
It was the first comic script I wrote, and I didn't know what I was doing, and I went to the first comic convention I went to was in Bristol, and the comics guys were there. They were a new British company, and I handed over my script like that, and kind of like didn't pitch it to them because I didn't know you had to pitch for a comic or any of that. I just didn't know how any of it worked, and I left them my script and kind of walked away. And then they rang me about 3-4 months later, and they went, "Oh look, we finally read this, and we really like it, and we want to do it." And I was really fortunate; they paired me up with an amazing artist called Trevor Head.
I was going to say, like, Trevor Hairsign straight out of the box is quite a good thing, isn't it? Really?
Yeah. And Trev sort of like probably made up for some of the. I had a vague idea of what I was doing, but I didn't entirely know what I was doing. So I think Trev made my script look acceptable, and probably better than it was. Fantastic. Well done.
Well, it's good to know that just dropping a script off with a publisher clearly works.
I don't advocate doing that at all. No one will read your script. So I got really, really lucky, but just they were willing to read a script from just someone who'd never had anything published before.
But now we know how you guys each individually got your start. Where did the idea for Petrol Head come from, and how did you two end up linking up to work on it together?
I started off when I mean, I've always quite liked drawing cars, and I'd quite fancy drawing a comic with cars in it in some way, but I'm no writer. So I'd sort of, during lockdown, took it upon myself to draw some, to just do a bit of world building, like have some pictures of cars and robots that might drive them. And I don't know, yeah, I just wanted to do something for me rather than chasing tedious jobs, which is what I was doing at the time. And Rob saw them and said, "Oh, do you think this could make like quite a good comic? Can we, you know?" And he's expanded on it in a way that's making it much better than it would have been without, you know, anyone else being involved. So yeah, we went from there. It had to have cars and robots, and the rest is all Rob, really.
Yeah, it's very teamworky, but it's like it was. I mean, one of the things I've said before, but Pye did these posters for these futuristic sort of robot car drivers with their hot rods and things. But one of the things I liked about them was just how colourful they were, and the colours of Petrol Head were a major reason why Petrol Head is what it is. And also, they just had this like fun tone to the entire thing. And I forget, like one of them was kind of like, you know, thumbs up, like yo or something like that. And it just looked fun. And maybe it was the fact that it was COVID at the time, where we were all locked in our houses, going vaguely insane in a dystopian. Oh shit, we're actually living in a dystopian future. Who knew? And it just like the thought of doing something fun and optimistic and, you know, high energy and everything really appealed. So it just, yeah, I said, like, have you thought about doing a create your own comic in this type of thing? And then we started talking about the story and the characters and building all that.
That's so wonderful. We love it, like the organic growth of the book. It just feels so wonderfully collaborative. But Pye, you do pretty much everything art-wise on the book, from the pencils to the coloring to the lettering. You have a lot of control over what the page ends up physically looking like when you are controlling all of those parts. How much do you kind of think about those roles as individuals, or do you really go in doing it all at once?
Yeah, all at once. Like it's a. I think about it with an end result in mind. So, for example, like I'll letter my pencils so that I can change the art if it needs it, and I ink in a way that lets the color do a lot of the work, which is why I'd slightly struggle to have someone else color my stuff, because I deliberately leave out lines that I can then fill in the form in a different way, you know. Whereas if you had to leave it for a color, you'd have to. If I left it for a different colorist, you'd have to draw a lot more to show the shape of stuff. Whereas I can just leave a big circle and do the rest with the stuff. And then I don't know, because I've got a design background, that comes into it naturally anyway. It's just the way I think about things. So coming up with silly logos to go on Petrol Head then kind of feeds into the way I might approach a contents page, for example, or, you know. So yeah, no, it's absolutely it's one process.
And that's super, super rad. We are always lauding people who are doing multiple jobs on a book, because it's just so cool to see how one impressive. Mind gets everything down onto the page.
All that.
Oh, thank you.
But yeah,
also, I mean,
Rob,
there's even things in the background of, even though the script sort of states, you know, who's doing what and what's happening and script and everything. There's a lot of stuff Pye puts into the background of a lot of it, which is so much part of the world building. Do you know what I mean? As well, it's like I'm thinking about things like cereal packets in that scene where like Looper and her dad are talking in issue 2 and stuff. None of that's in the script, and it just all really helps make the world feel organic and lived in, which I think is such a real. It's quite a hard thing to do, but it's something that just is really, you know, again, part of why the book works, I think.
Absolutely. And speaking of how like lived in and real the world feels, you do such a good job balancing moments of levity and more serious moments in this series, sometimes even very close to each other. Like there's the moment where Lupa leaves her father behind. I think it's literally the next page where you get hybrids like Robo Cookies joke, you know, which is so funny. So how do you, Rob, like handle where you're going to put those moments of levity in the book without like undercutting the more serious moments?
Oh, that's a good question. I think that's sort of instinctive more than it is planned. I mean, but that's part of what I wanted the book to be, was just, we want to make it a bit of an emotional ride, and we want to sort of occasionally hit you in the stomach, which I think we do, you know, but we want it to be fun, and hopefully it's a really funny book. And there's lots of jokes and things that make us laugh when we're putting it together. Anyway, so but also it's got to have drama. It's got to. We want to make you care about these characters, and we're going to put. Hopefully, what we do. Any good writer is a horrible person, really, because they make you care about characters, and then they do terrible things to those characters, and that's part of what part of the job. To be honest with you, so there are moments here where hopefully, we're reaching for the heartstrings as well. We wanted it to be a book which has heart and laughs and high-paced action and all these kind of things. We want it to be a fun ride, basically. But you want to get that balance. You want to get that balance right. And also, I should say, with tonally, because of the colours and because of the overall tone of the book being quite optimistic and quite up, we can sneak by some kind of quite heavy, themes like sort of the climate emergency type of thing, which are relevant. But we're not doing that in a way, hopefully, that's going to bum people out. But it's there if you want to look for it.
No, like you said, it's so optimistic that it doesn't feel like a downer of a book about the end of the world. It's an exciting adventure book set in the end of the world, and gives that optimistic hope to the end of the world, which is something that I think you don't always see when it comes to like kind of apocalyptic, post-apocalyptic books.
Yeah, and again, this is what we were kind of aiming for. But at its heart, it's about a racing car robot, right? So there's got to be races in it. And if there's got to be races in it, there's people chasing people, and there's baddies and good guys, and it can be as simplistic as that. But then if you can, all the other, the cool sort of complexity of it, we kind of filter in. But essentially, it's meant to be a really good time. That's not the heaviest read for people,
Yeah,
well,
absolutely.
I'll have you know that I was in tears. I think the trade is out. All 5 issues have been out for a while. How did you do that to Dave? My poor boy.
Yeah.
Charlotte was with you in your with tears. She came in after she refuses to read it until it's fully finished, and I think she saw that issue and then came in. She came into the office when I was sat over there. She opened the door and said, "I'm not happy with you." I don't blame him.
I'm glad she's a voice for all of us.
Yeah.
Yeah, we had Pye and I were WhatsApping the other day, and he sort of said, "Look, don't blame me. I just do what I'm told about something else." That's exactly what the Nazis said at the end of the Second World War.
And hey, you are not blameless. That was a very emotive broken bird.
No,
Yeah.
I know, but
We
it's
got a lot of emotion out of it. All the robots in this book. So.
yeah, but it's just that thing of just make if you make a character really you think like hopefully we're making the audience really love these characters. So if something bad happens to one of them, it's like, oh no, but I don't like doing it as much as I don't enjoy it, but you have to do it.
Oh, he doesn't enjoy it. No.
Let's pivot for a second back to one of the more fun and enjoyable parts of the comic. You mentioned before the car chases and the races are a big part of this series, and we talk about a lot of comics, and something that comes up a lot is that car chases are just extraordinarily hard to do in comics, like because it's all static images, and car chases are a fluid motion type of a thing, and a lot of comics really struggle to make it clear what's going on in car chases and get you excited and actually invested in them. You guys do such a phenomenal job. Every car chase is exciting. You're right there, you're rooting, you're feeling the twists and turns that go into them. So I'm interested on both a writing and an artistic level how you guys manage to make these car chases so engaging.
Well, I think a lot of the stuff with the engagement is the fact that you're not rooting for. I mean, obviously you want Petrol Head to do well or whatever, but a lot of the drama in the races doesn't come from the race itself. It's some other thing that's playing out between the characters, and I think that's quite important. Why they're, especially that first big race when you see Petrol Head's mate die, and it's more about showing you about the characters than showing you who's going to win.
Yeah, and but also, I mean, visually, I mean, it's tough. There are sort of certain comics. There's not many, but there are a few who do sort of speed on the page and racing really well. And Akira is one which is a very obvious one. I mean, it's things like Alex Toth's Hot Wheels. I mean, Alex Toth everything he drew was just pretty much perfect. But it's, again, you come in, you go, this is a comic about a racing car robot. So we knew we wanted these sequences. And it's tough to do. But I mean, Pye just completely rocks them. And you do get that sense of velocity. But again, when you're writing it, when you write a page, if you have a little sequence, it's quite interesting doing action sequences in comics, how much real estate they take up pretty quickly. Because if you kind of go, right, let's say we'll have a little sequence where gear stick goes forward, right? That's one panel. Foot hits the accelerator. That's another panel. Steering wheel or something. I mean, that's 4 panels. That could easily be a page, just that, in that little bit of sort of like action there. So with issue 1 of Petrol Head, we had a double-sized issue, and that gave us a little bit more space. But it's kind of wild how, if you want to do a really involved action sequence with these kind of incremental visual sort of steps in them, to make it all feel kind of cinematic and real, it takes up an awful lot of a comic, to be honest. We could easily do a 22-page chase sequence.
We were talking about that the other day, weren't we? It's got to have the reason to put it in, otherwise it just becomes boring. And like, I think the quiet moments when they're not racing make the racing bits better as well. If it was all just wall to wall, it'd all be one note. There wouldn't be any flow to it.
Yeah, you also do such a good job with the creativity behind every single race. I feel like it's never just, 2 cars going next to each other. There's always something weird going on, whether you're jumping down into the sewers, whether you're throwing the chump attack in the first issue where he gets hybrid. You've always got things that make the race so interesting to look at in this static medium, when you don't have, the loud roar of the engines or the actual moving in front of you speed to keep you invested.
Yeah, and we can still. I mean, I think of Frank Quitely's Batman and Robin, where he would draw the massive sort of raw sound effects of the Batmobile into the panels. But there's things comics can do to kind of really sell that stuff, which we do, I think. But again, it's like any story, really. It's all about the characters. I mean, it's whether or not you care about the characters, and we've got weird. Like I say, just in the race, the chase sequence in issue 2, then we have things like Satnav Sid pops up, who's just the weirdest idea, which is a Satnav wrote a little hologram on Petrol Head's car, for some reason speaks as Cockney rhyming slang, which makes very little sense whatsoever. But it's all these little things which make it hopefully esoteric and distinct and not a cliche, to be honest with you. But the only trouble that we've said before, every time we keep adding to the cast, we like them too much to get rid of them. They all just end up hanging around. So by the end of the first arc, we've got a little team book. There's Satnav Sid and Hybrid, like you said, with the Robo Cookies. We love Hybrid too much.
Yeah, you're preaching to the choir with that. We are big Hybrid fans.
Oh, good. Yeah, I'm hoping he's going to get some good bits in the second series as well. Because he's still kicking about.
Even though spoilers, he is. At the end of the first series, he is just ahead. Who basically all he can say is, "I'm confused."
He learned a little lesson in humility.
Yeah. Well, it was we were never originally going to do that. Really, it was always just going to be Petrol Head and Looper, and then the cast has got bigger and bigger. And the other thing is, once anything can become a little AI robot, then everything can talk to you. It ends up a little bit like Bugs Bunny. Oh no, not Bugs Bunny. Roger Rabbit, where every single thing is a walking, talking creature.
Some of those walking, talking creatures just have a Cockney accent.
Yeah, there is an internal logic for it, which I think in the issue, like Looper says, why is he talking like that? And Dave says, "Oh, Petrol Head watched this old film and he wouldn't stop talking about it." And it's just like, and that basically there was an old. If you ever want to look it up, there was an old British actor called Tommy Steele, who did an appalling sort of Cockney accent in a film called Half a Sixpence and sings songs like "Hold It, Catch Me, What a Picture" and all that, right? So that's the film that Petrol Head watched, which is a very strange thing for motor racing robot to watch. But there you go.
You
I
know,
like the
he
fact that at
contains
some point, yes,
multitudes.
that's again like part of the very sort of small bit of wheel building is about one evening he's been bored and just sat there flicking through the TV, watching TV with Dave. I think it's
And he watched a
very
really
nice.
old, terrible British musical.
And decided that's what my sat nav is going to sound like.
Yeah. I mean, if nothing else about Petrol Head, I think no one could go, oh, we've seen all these characters before. Do you know what I mean? I think that
Yeah, the world building it's so unique, it's so awesome, and so much of that comes from the character designs, not only for our titular Petrol Head, but the way that technology works and interacts with humans like Elder Eye, but also the other racers and Petrol Heads like our favorite hybrid, like Chief. What was the process like for creating these characters?
How did we sort of approach that? I remember like things like Petrol Head. Rob came with a couple of lines that were great. Would just literally give him an engine for a head. I think was the starting point, so that it's like very obviously a pun. But we sort of pared that back a little bit really because drawing a full engine for his head would be a living nightmare. Like literally every panel. So I just went with the exhaust pipe. But yeah, the other characters. I think, how was Hybrid? Hybrid was Paul Newman, was it? You wanted him to be,
wanted him to be
almost like the opposite of Petrol.
Yeah, Petrol Head was all clunky and sort of made from spare parts. Hybrid was designed to be the cheesy, good-looking kind of Brad Pitt type of Paul Newman-esque. But unfortunately, they built it. He hasn't got much of an IQ, bless him. But his narcissism is 99 on the narcissism scale.
I love that page that has like the bars and the stack.
yeah, the fact that there is a narcissism stat is very telling.
I think it says something like intelligence 43, narcissism 99. So there's a lot of people like that, I think. But then Chief.
That just means there's room for him to become more narcissistic, which is crazy. How does he get to 100?
I
always see, yeah.
I think he's had a bit of an epiphany since his encounter with Supercar Star. I don't know. Maybe he's coming back the other way. We don't know. We'll find out. But what about Chief? How did you design? He's just like an old robot, wasn't he?
Yeah, just an old bloke. I don't really remember. He sort of arrived fully formed, really. I remember sort of slightly after his car, I fancied drawing a much older kind of Mercedes-style Formula One car with like an open-wheeled thing. But then that sort of suggests having a bomber jacket and an old flying cap or something to wear. And there's not. And then I think I had to give him a beard. And there's only so many ways you can do that as a robot. So that's pipes, and there's not much left after that. It's just he's got the same arms as Petrol Head. One of the things I did want to do with Petrol Head, we sort of reverse engineered this, was because he's made of spare parts that were left over from building the other guys. I tried to give some of the other robots things that he has. So he has the same forearm as the Chief, and he has the same little chest hands as the O, things like that.
That's so, because one of my follow-ups was going to be, what was the decision to give him his strange little T-Rex arms? But that's really interesting to pull it from the other designs.
Well, first of all, if he was going to build something like Dave, he needs slightly less clunky than a big three-armed, three-fingered sort of big hand, and then his other hand is even bigger. I mean, my thinking there is that that's almost like the world's biggest Swiss Army knife for fixing vehicles. So it might have a jack and it might have all these other bits and bobs that might be useful for him. So maybe there's some more stuff hidden in there you haven't seen. I don't know. But yeah, I wanted something a bit more delicate. So the third arm was more making him just look a bit odd and making it so it's much less symmetrical and giving him a hand that can change, because he can't use the big hand for driving. Maybe he could steer while he's using the other one. And then the little ones were just, I don't know. Yeah, I wanted it something very small. And also a bit of an in-joke with a mate of mine who's always gone about, as a sort of 20-year-old stoner, thinking that having a pair of small baby hands that sat here in front of you could roll a joint with would be quite a useful thing, because then you could think on playing the computer or whatever. So that's been a sort of thing that's been in the back of my mind for about 20 years.
The true function of Petrol Head's little arms. It's just joint rolling.
Yeah, maybe he rolls his own cigars with it. I might have to put that in as a sort of little background detail. That's cool. Yeah.
Phenomenal.
I always think there's this awesome bit. It just flashes by really quick. I think in Terminator 2, where the T2 is flying the helicopter and is firing out.
Yes.
And then it just cuts across, and he's grown, because there's no reason why he couldn't, because he's malleable, sort of liquid metal. He's grown a third hand, which has the hold of a joystick, and it's just like, oh my god! So Petrol Head can do that too, obviously.
Amazing.
That's so cool.
Yeah, I'd forgotten about that. Yeah, that's a great little bit in that movie that no one ever sort of really. It's just such a quick thing, and they never revisit it.
Yeah, it's just like wow. Yeah. Anyway.
So I have a question that's kind of been one that I've been wondering about since picked up the very first issue, because I'm very interested if it was just kind of a happy accident or if this was something planned on the publishing end. You guys lined up very well. The releases of Petrol Head every month, releasing alongside the issues of the new Transformer series every single month, released in the same week.
Yeah, total fluke, I think.
That was a great way to people go for Transformers. Here's this other robot, book that they might be interested in.
Yeah, interestingly, I found that any podcast that sort of tended to review, if they reviewed Transformers, they'd almost certainly picked up Petrol Head as well, which was nice because it was a good. They're more likely to talk about Transformers than they are Petrol Head to start with. So I was like, well, if we were hunting narcissistically for reviews of my own work, if I always checked any video with that Transformers mentioned. Yeah.
No, we didn't plan that. That's giving us more credit than we deserve, frankly. That's smart.
Well, maybe there's brains up an image.
Maybe.
Yeah, could be.
There's a thing. We're not playing chess. We're playing checkers. We're playing checkers. We're not playing chess. Other people are playing.
Well, it worked out well, certainly. We've also seen that Petrol Head is in the early stages of a movie being adapted. Was that something that you had in mind when you were making the comic? Because it is such like a good cinematic story.
It's always one of those things that's like a possibility of a nice idea, but certainly you don't draw the comic with that in mind. You have to sort of make the comic work in its own terms. But yeah, not planned, but very nice and very welcome that it has been picked up. Yeah,
we kind of, because it's creator owned and we own it, so I've got an agent for film and TV stuff, and I did give, we were sort of proactive in giving it to my agent and going and sending it out to people, but you don't know that's ever going to come off. There's no guarantees whatsoever, and it's still, I think we've got a meeting about with the film people tomorrow or Tuesday.
Is it tomorrow? Yeah, maybe
Tuesday. Yeah. We've had a meeting. We'll see where it goes. There is zero guarantees with this stuff whatsoever.
Right.
But everyone seems quite enthusiastic and excited about it. So fingers crossed.
Yeah, we are, and that's another. It's another reason why we've got to do more of the second series, because we need to finish it. They've kind of said, can we find out a bit more so we can make more of a complete film? So we need to get on with it and finish more so they can finish more.
But it would be very awesome. We want Petrol Head toys at least in every shop in the country.
Those designs are so made to be just little toys to sit on your desk or whatever. Like they are such cool designs to exist in 3D. That'd be really, really cool.
We heartily agree. Now, if that film comes out, next time we do this podcast with you, there will be 12 bikes in Pye's root space.
from selling toys, is that?
Yeah.
Fingers crossed.
And I'll be wearing like Elton John's glasses or something. I don't know.
Oh man, if I could buy a real actual hot rod off toy sales, that would be a wonderful thing.
Yeah.
What a world we'd live in.
But you guys mentioned the second series, so you guys kind of teased that. Rob, you I think put out a picture of you working on the script. Is that still where that's at? Is that in the script stage? Is it where are you guys with the second series? How close is that to coming out?
Oh, I think well, part of it's written. A lot more of it still needs to be written. Basically, we've got a loose kind of timetable where hopefully it'll be out next summer, but we will see how we go. It'll be ready when it's ready. Basically, it's one of those things because Pye draws it and colours it and designs it and letters it. We can't farm it out to a team of trained chimpanzees. We'd like to.
So we describe our
You've
fellow
just got the
creators.
one trained chimpanzee.
I didn't say that. A team
Well,
of
very well trained. Very well trained.
200 heavily trained chimpanzees could possibly create this.
I'd love to be able to bang out 25 pages a month like a lot of these guys do, but I just can't. I can't do it. It's too much. It's too much on my own. I can do about 10 pages a month. So you work out how long 5 issues or 6 issues is going to take from when I start, and that's when it's
Are
coming
you
out.
going to do another oversized first issue? Is that the plan, or is this all?
Not this time. No, I don't think.
Yeah, everything is up in flux at the minute, but thus far, no, is what we got. But if it's all we can say thus far is we quite like what we've got so far, don't we? We kind of
I've read. So Rob's rewritten the first episode a couple of times, and I've read the latest version the other day, and it's good. There's some good stuff.
But it's also, I mean, we were talking about, it's kind of interesting. It's like coming at it from a sequel point of view, where you kind of go, right, you don't want to change what, there's certain things that worked really well, and you go, right, okay, we want to do all those again. But you also have an awareness you can't just do exactly the same thing again. So So you don't want to sort of like change the DNA of it, but you've got to slightly push it in different directions as well. And so I think we feel it because we really love what we did with the first series, and we do feel I think a degree of pressure to actually not mess it up the second time around. Put it that way.
That's right. If only from like a weight of expectation from myself, if no one else, like it's got to be at least as good. It can't.
Yeah,
it would be a shame to sort of have it be a bit of a squib, and I would need it to be right.
It
we
won't
fully
be.
support all the time it takes to make it that way.
Definitely won't be.
That's it. I don't want to end up spending like 2 years making it. Just everything must be perfect.
It'll come out in a decade, and then we'll.
Yeah, exactly. No one will give a shit.
And maybe by then Rob will have a pitch for the second volume.
I know that won't take long. But there are these sort of mythical comics that sort of like people announce, and then sort of we're all still waiting for it 10 years down the line. Maybe we could be one of them. Great.
Well, I've got my fingers and the extra little arms crossing their fingers for a summer release.
Good. Everyone needs to have extra little arms.
Yes. But until then, the first 5 issues of the series, the first volume, as well as the trade, are both out and available wherever you get your comics, wherever you get your graphic novels. Rob and Pye, do you have anything coming down the pipeline that you want to plug, or are we just looking for more trades?
Well, me and Rob have recently done a story for the Creepshow anthology it's coming out at Christmas, which is quite fun.
The Skybound, yeah.
Very cool.
And
so
it's called the Terry Reno Christmas Special, and tonally it's very different from Petrol Head. But we got the lettered proof through for that last week, and I think it's kind of great actually. We're sort of really, really pleased with how it turned out. So I'm a bit reticent to tell everyone who loves Petrol Head to go and buy it, because it's a horror 10-pager. It's not the same kind of tone, but if you like what we did with Petrol Head, go and pick that up, because we think it's turned out really well.
Awesome. We'll have to keep an eye out for that, and check it out on the podcast for sure. Thank you guys so much for your time. This has been awesome talking to you about Petrol Head.
No worries. Thank you again.
Thanks for having us.
Thank you so much to Pye Parr and Rob Williams for that fantastic interview. We love Petrol Head in this house. As Katie searches.
No, he didn't tell me we were doing this.
I did it just to screw with her. But we have so much more content coming up for you guys. We, of course, did our Hellboy bonus episode explaining and reviewing the Hellboy Crooked Man comic book this past Saturday. Thank you guys all so much for the fantastic response to that video. You guys really seem to enjoy it, so I think we're going to be moving forward with that kind of explained format where we really tell you guys about the full plot of our bonus episode books in addition to reviewing them, because you guys seem to like that.
But speaking of bonus episodes, we also have one coming this weekend where we are going to not really explain, but I guess explain what our plan is for the absolute universe coming from DC. You guys know we're big DC fans.
Yeah, and now we've got
so
a whole universe to follow, which is really, really exciting.
Yeah.
You know, we'll be able to read everything going on in this universe and get a full feel of it. And I think,
which is super rad and something that I don't think has been present for DC, even with things like Rebirth and stuff. Even with Dawn of DC, it's like, okay, that's like 70 books. What the fuck?
yeah, you can't do that.
But we're gonna be getting right into the Absolute Universe. We're gonna read every single Absolute Universe book, not counting Absolute Power, because we don't give a shit about that. But
that's not Absolute Universe though. That's the
exactly.
Like,
I'm just making sure that it's clear. We don't care about this.
But in any case, we'll be doing a fantasy football style draft where we will be drafting characters. We have a whole fantasy like point system set up. We'll explain it all to you on Saturday.
Yes.
But with the All-In special coming out this Wednesday, we will be using the Absolute kind of launch in that to show you guys how the scoring is going to work. And then moving forward, we will be doing it kind of book to book. So all the issue 1s will, be scored together. And every month we'll kind of give you a video covering all of the issue 1s, all of the issue 2s, 3s, etc. And kind of checking you guys in with how our competition is going, score-wise.
While also giving you a pretty thorough rundown of what's going on in the Absolute Universe.
Yeah, those will be full spoiler, full catch-up. So at any point, if you want to jump in on the Absolute Universe, you could just watch our last video and it'll kind of catch you up to where it's at.
Yeah.
So, yeah, but of course we have our main episode next Wednesday. Do you want to tell everybody what we're going to be reviewing in that episode, Kate?
I would love nothing more. So as mentioned, we're going to be reading DC All-In for our Saturday thing, but we'll talk about the issue as a whole instead of just like the...
Yeah, the main story that's in the main universe, which I believe is a Booster Gold story, much to Katie's excitement as a Booster Gold fan.
Oh, I have him out of frame. I have a good boy over there.
Doesn't matter.
He's out of frame. It doesn't matter.
Booster Gold story. Very cool.
We've got Night of the Slashers #1 from Magma Comics, the esteemed publishers of The Pedestrian, a Katie fave. We've got Winnie the Pooh Demon Hunter #4, the conclusion to this first volume in actual publisher format. Very exciting, from friend of the pod, Nick Mueller. Love you, Nick. And then we have Hyde Street #1. We loved Rick Exodus so much. When we read the Ghost Machine little sampler thing, neither one of us was like, yes, let's read Hyde Street. But it's coming back with Jeff Johns and Ivan Reis, so we'll give it a shot.
Ivan Reis fan, so we gotta pick this up and check it out.
Exactly.
I think we're gonna probably check out at least one more of the new books in the launching in the next month or two.
I think 2 more, because there was one that you were very interested in and one that I was interested in.
Mine was Hornsby and Halo. I couldn't.
And
remember
mine was
yours,
the Rockefellers.
Okay, there we go. I couldn't remember yours, so I didn't want to say it because I didn't remember the title. But yeah, so probably 2 more, which I think is all the new launches coming up for Ghost Machine. And we'll probably end up pulling at least one of them moving forward. We'll see how many of them we end up liking enough to keep going.
Exactly.
But, yeah, it's gonna be very cool. But in any case, see you next week. Comic Geeks.